could let them down. They were lost and never found. Fallen leaves, fallen leaves, fallen leaves on the ground.
Okay, now the story in Dead Space 2 is actually really good and really intriguing. I wasn't expecting it to actually be good because the first Dead Space 1 really just didn't have an intriguing story to me. I didn't beat it, but like really I played like all the way to chapter like 4 or 5, I don't remember. And it was just really boring and just I didn't really care for it. The story in this caught me like at least like at chapter 2. I mean, it really did catch me because you're interacting with all these characters you don't know and a whole bunch of weird stuff happening. Isaac Clarke wakes up a couple years later on the Sprawl ship. He doesn't know how he got there, what's going on, how the necromorphs are actually on this ship, just like the Ishimura before, and he has to figure all this stuff out, and how this marker, which was in the first game, is recreated in the second one. What happened, later on he finds out really what happened. Obviously, you know, it's not like they say, screw it. It's not important. Why should we talk about it? And pretty much he has to figure out how to stop this and get rid of this annoying voice in its head. I don't really want to spoil what it is because, I mean, it's in the description of the video game, so if you read the back of the box, it'll probably say it. I don't know. But I'm not going to tell you. He has to find out what this voice in his head is. I mean, he doesn't really need to find out. He knows what it is, but I'm not going to spoil it for you guys. But this voice in his head telling him to do crazy stuff. He has to go and fight that voice off and stuff like that. And he has to go around in this ship, killing all these necromorphs, these aliens, and just trying to figure out what happened and all that stuff. You know, it's hard to explain the story when I don't want to spoil it because this is a sequel and it's story heavy in this one. And if it was opposite, like Dead Space 1 was story heavy and this one wasn't, then I wouldn't care. But this one is actually really story heavy and it has a really, really good story. So I really like the story. So let's go on to the sound. Now, the sound is amazing. I'll just say it right here. Even if you do not like Dead Space, you cannot say the sound is terrible because the sound effects, the sound design is some of the best out there. It's so eerie and so creepy. All the sound effects all inside these hallways that you go through, these rooms, and all the creepy voices you hear. It just sounds awesome. The creatures sound great. Everything, the soundtrack is spooky, everything is awesome. It actually made me turn down my freaking sound effects and sound like gameplay because it was actually creeping me out a lot. And I'm a girl, so I'm not a girl, but I'm girly. So you know, I couldn't deal with it. So the sound effects were really good. Now let me talk about the actual voice acting in the game, because there is voice acting. Like I said before, they gave the main character Isaac Clarke a voice. Yay! So guess what? He's really good. He's actually a really good voice actor. I heard he was like a professional motorcyclist and stuff like that, and now he's doing voice acting, which is kind of weird. But whatever, he's really good. All the other voice acting is really, really good. Just overall, the sound is just fantastic. Voice acting is great, and sound design is some of the best out there. So overall, sound effects, all that, sound fantastic. And let's go on to the graphics. Okay, now the graphics in the game are actually really fantastic. I'll say it right here. They look really, really good. I do have one problem with them, and I'll just say it right here before I actually get into what I thought was fantastic. They don't look much different than Dead Space 1's graphics. I mean, Dead Space 1 was a fantastic looking game. I thought it was one of the best looking games of its time. 2008 was a fantastic year for graphics because Dead Space owned it. I thought Dead Space was an amazing looking game. Maybe it was just me, but I don't know. I thought Dead Space looked freaking amazing. Dead Space 2 looks great, don't get me wrong, but it does not look that different. The special effects are great in the game, all the little gun blasts and all that stuff. The environmental effects are great. The environments are very spooky looking and are rendered perfectly. There was no real glitches. Hell, there's not even any real loading screens in the game besides maybe starting your last save up or something. But there's no real loading screens at all. Cutscenes go in and out of each other. Like, you'll just go from one cutscene and straight into gameplay without like a freaking black screen interrupting and then, oh, you're in the gameplay or something. That's really cool, but I still think the graphics don't look that much different. I'm still going to give it a high score, but just not as high as I would have gave Dead Space 1 in 2008. So let's go on to the gameplay. Okay, now the gameplay in Dead Space 2 is actually, I think it's much, much better than Dead Space 1. And I'm going to tell you why right now. I'm going to say it right here. Didn't really improve much in the actual gameplay department with the shooting and the reloading, and I mean, sure, they gave you a couple of new guns and stuff and new armors and all that stuff, but they didn't really change much in the gameplay itself. At least I didn't think it felt like they did. But let me say right here, the different creatures they give you, the kill, and the whole different environment, all the spooky stuff, really made me want to continue to play. Dead Space 1 was spooky, but I just thought it was mostly just jump scares. Dead Space 2 does have its fair amount of jump scares, but it also has some cool little things that are just like, it's not scary, it's just creepy. Like, sometimes you go into an old school and you see blood everywhere and a whole bunch of like children's stuff around, and it's just really creepy. It reminded me of Fear 2's school level. If you played Fear 2, you know what I'm talking about. And just overall, I mean, just the different things that are in Dead Space 2 make the gameplay a lot more enjoyable. I did like the gameplay in Dead Space 1, don't get me wrong. I just didn't like it as much as Dead Space 2 because of the environment and the new creatures and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I really like the gameplay. But let me talk about the other part of Dead Space 2, which is the multiplayer. Now, the multiplayer of Dead Space 2 is actually pretty fun. Now, I didn't think it was fantastic. Many people out there are saying, hey, it's kind of mediocre, it's kind of disappointing. I think it's pretty fun. You know, I think it's more fun when you actually play as a human character because you get to play as the necromorphs or the human players. I think it's more fun to play as the human characters and just be with your friends or something like that, and like, yeah, let's go and kill necromorphs and stuff, because I always think Dead Space 2 should have online co-op. That would be freaking awesome. Like, your friend will be in a different place and you'll be here and you have to meet up at the end of the level or something like that, or like meet up halfway through the level and then the rest you can go and do other things or something like that, or take different paths or something. That would be really cool, and you're just talking the whole way through. That would be really cool. But that's why I would love to play. I love to play as the human characters in Dead Space 2 multiplayer because it's just fun to play with your friends. The creatures are kind of bland. If you played Singularity, which I know many people haven't, it's kind of like that because in the multiplayer you get to play as the creatures. Hell, if you played Left 4 Dead 2 or 1, then you would know what I'm talking about, because if you played the multiplayer versus, then you get to play as the creatures. Or I should say zombies, but whatever. Anyway, the multiplayer is fun. The gameplay is are really, really good. And overall, the game is just a lot of fun, and I really liked it. I didn't care for Dead Space 1, but Dead Space 2 makes me excited for Dead Space 3. So hopefully Dead Space 3 is being worked on. I heard there's DLC for this game. Maybe I'll buy it when it gets cheaper. But right now I'm low on money, so I'm saving up for other games like Bulletstorm. So anyway, there you go. There is my review for Dead Space 2. Check the description for the full written review. Well, the written review, not full written review. It's just going over what I kind of said in each category and then giving you a score. So anyway, thank you and goodbye.